This is my good. She's an occupational therapist and was
During the day.
during the day in her second job. This is her first job. But you volunteered for Johnny and Friends for a long time and been involved in Vacation Bible School, I mean, family retreat. You've done a lot of different things for Johnny and Friends, and I'm super excited for her because she is going to Thailand the end of April on a Wheels for the World trip with Johnny and Friends. So they'll be taking wheelchairs and distributing them to people who have no mobility. And, there'll be hundreds of wheelchairs distributed, but more importantly, it's the gospel going with those chairs and that they're fitted for each person that comes. And it's an amazing outreach. And I'm so proud of you that you're going. We've done family retreat in Thailand together, so that was a really blast for us. But going on the wheels trip, I think is really exciting. I'm happy that you get to do that one. So, Tracy's also a member of our engagement team, Johnny and Friends, which is special area ministry of volunteers who are helping me equip local churches in disability ministry. And so it's a pleasure to have you here with us to speak and part of this group. So without further ado, Tracy Johnson.
All right. So I'm going to be back and forth just because I don't like to turn around to look at what's going on behind me. So
Sorry,
and I just lost all of y'all at home.
Sorry.
How you doing? We good? I'll wait for you, Ash. We're good. I'll just keep talking so that the owl will show it to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I started with Johnny and Friends, I was involved in the Vacation Bible Schools at our churches and directing them and volunteering in them and all that. So, and as an occupational therapist who works with kids in schools with disabilities, it's multiple same. It kind of was natural to kind of say, how do we adapt this? This is what I do. So to me, it's very natural. And so I have to kind of remember that when I kind of break it down a little bit. So interesting. Who referenced the Psalm 130, 139? Was it you guys? So your biblical, there's a whole bunch of places in the Bible that kind of direct us to this is our job. It's not go out and make disciples of able-bodied people. There's nothing that says that. We're to go out and make disciples, and we're to love everyone. And so just kind of wanted to orient us a little bit. And did you send these out? So all these slides can be given to anybody here.
Send them out.
Yeah, anybody's welcome to. This is not copyrighted material, except for the things that I pulled off Johnny and Friends. So these are just some of the things that you can think about when you're starting your VBS. I always start with questions. What are some of the questions I have is a great way to get us thinking. So what are, sorry, are you doing so? Which parts of VBS could create friction with our friends with disabilities? So just take a look at what have we done? What might cause some friction? Might it be the stairway? Might it be the sound? Might it be the activity level? Might it be the snacks? Just kind of think about what could be a point of friction. And then what might be some of the barriers. So friction is just, it sounds a little bit loud, the barrier might be, we need a place for someone who can't get in or be in that environment. And this is the hardest question, honestly, of all of them. What are my own fears? What are my own insecurities about what I know and what I think I don't know? And I say it like that because you really do know more than you think you know. We all get tied up in a, nobody ever told me about this, so I don't know. Well, just look to the Bible, you know, not know, that will, okay, maybe else. I forgot I should tell you this as I do it. So then one of the next question that is, what does it look like to be fully included? What do we want from our worship service to be? Mhm. Um, so what does our fellowship look like? What is what is your physical layout? Okay, we all are in New England. We have churches that are hundreds of years old, and we have churches that are in warehouses. It varies. And I shared that my church is kind of in its infancy of kind of developing an intentional disability ministry. However, our church is absolutely, it's not 100%, but it has a parking lot that's on the same floor as the fellowship hall. We have doors that open, you can open with a switch. We have a lift system that goes from the 2 floors. So we have handicap accessible bathrooms. Those kinds of things are available. So we're okay on this, but doesn't mean that we're okay on everything. And just because you are not okay on one thing, doesn't mean you're not okay on everything. Okay, so the next kind of question, what does full access to worship mean? Is it going to be okay for some kids to wear noise canceling headphones? Is that going to be a problem? Is it going to be okay for some adults to wear sunglasses because the lights might be too bright? Is it going to be okay for somebody to be able to walk in the back and pace? Or walk out? And kind of creating that culture. And then what does it look like to have full access to God's word? Maybe we have somebody who's blind, who needs a braille light. And that's not a standard stock. I don't know about your churches, but that's not something we just have. We have Bibles lying around and encourage people to take them, but it may not be in braille. Or it may not be large print. Or we may not have a service that is accessible to somebody who is deaf. Okay, what do we have to do to allow that to happen? And so when I talk about Vacation Bible School, one of the things I think about is there is not a one size fits all. Okay. And so I because I'm a visual person, by the way, I designed this presentation to have a variety of different learning styles. So those of you who are more cortical, kind of wait to the end because you'll get a little bit more theoretical. Those are a little bit more visual. Here you go. Those are okay. So you're going to hear redundancy in this, but that's the point. So you can kind of think of your worship being completely all inclusive or specialized worship. So we have a kids worship, and we have a adult worship, we have a disability worship, we have a older generation worship. Okay. And then there's points in between. So there's rarely a church that's all one or the other. And then you have how you teach that those concepts and those biblical underpinnings that we want to convey to our congregation and allow our participants to engage in the word. Okay. And so do we do it fully inclusive where they learn the same thing as everybody else in the same way everybody else does, and they get what they get. And actually I have somebody in my congregation that's the way their family prefers. That's what they want. We have to honor that. Just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. And we need to make sure we can honor that. And it's okay. Give yourself grace. It's okay. And so then we have specialized teaching where it's a completely separate. You're taken out of the service and given an entirely separate class. So your VBS class might not be at the grade level. It might be at a completely separate class. depends on who you've got coming in, so just be okay. Okay. Um. When you are thinking about adaptive teaching strategies, so this is, I'm gonna flip to the adaptive teaching strategies first. And then I'll go back to the slide.
Missions. Names and birthdays.
The VBS handout, sorry. The one that she showed.
Dr. Curriculum, Johnny and Friends.
No.
Tips and
Tips.
Pooch.
So this is the one that Liz was holding up, that I think is very helpful. It is available on the Johnny and Friends website, so if you didn't get a copy of it or you spilled coffee on yours, don't worry, you can retrieve it. And the beauty of this is these are all hyperlinks. So when you get onto a computer, you can click on those links and it will take you to a different page. So this is like a culmination of a variety of resources. Okay. And what it does is it kind of says, here's a way of looking at how to adapt your Vacation Bible School. So you can adapt it by section. So we can take our rec or our games and we can think about how to adapt rec and games. Okay. One of the biggest takeaways I find from this one is avoid competitive games. Work for cooperative games. That's what's going to bring me together. When you start going competitive games, you start finding there's kids that can't and kids that don't want to participate and the kids that want to win. And then you've got this going on. Okay. So that's the biggest takeaway. There's a whole lot of other ideas about how to adapt your rec and game. When you're talking about crafts, my biggest takeaway for crafts is make a demo craft. Don't expect that your kids are going to be able to just say, okay, we're going to make something, it's going to be a cross and it's going to have the red on one side and then it's going to have a flower in the back. And you've lost a lot of kids who are not capable of following all those directions. But when you make your demo craft, do not make it look perfect. Make it look wonky. Because if yours is wonky, it's okay if theirs is wonky. If somebody doesn't like wonky, they can change it to make it look less wonky. So if you're cutting out your cross, maybe you have a slip in it, or you cut wrong, or there's an extra border on it, or you colored something in and it's not completely colored with precision. Okay. It shows that it was handmade, and that can be your demo. Maybe have some of your Sunday school classes do your demos for you before VBS starts. And then you've got a demo. Okay. And it's a great way to get them kind of excited. So there are a ton of other, again, there's lots of other suggestions here. I'm very conscious of the fact that we have limited time, so I don't want to go into all of them, but I want to give you the big takeaways. When you have snack, make snack the way you want it. Do snack. If you've got a fun, our Bibles, our church is doing the one about light. Slipping my brain right now. But they were talking about cupcakes in a little ice cream cone that's frosted, makes it look like a flashlight. Make it. If you've got somebody with an allergy, or if you've got a couple of kids who are gluten-free, well, then you can adapt it then. You can figure out what you can do for an alternative. But don't get so wrapped up in making everything gluten-free that you kind of miss the fun. Maybe this is supposed to be fun. And it can be fun. And I'm not saying snacks aren't important, but if it's really we've had kids that come in that bring their own lunchbox and they want their own snacks. They don't care what it looks like. This is what they can predict and this is what they want. And this is great. Cool. Allow that. and music and worship. So be sensitive to the amount of light flickering and non-flickering up and down, and the sound, the volume of the sound. Those are your key pieces. Those are your key takeaways. Just be sensitive to those kinds of things. There is some individuals that are scent sensitive, so the smells might bother them. You likely will not find that out on a registration page. So you're gonna kind of figure that out by talking to the family. And the overall thing is be flexible. Oh, how about if we have our own little corner over here and you make it a big deal? Right, you've just turned something that could be a problem into a special event. Well, I want my friend. Well, let's bring your friend. Wait, do you got any senses? You got no scent? You can come over. So now you've got it someplace where kids want to be. Okay. So just because you have an issue doesn't necessarily need to make it a problem. I guess that's what I look at. And just because there is a difference does not mean it is a disability. Okay, and I always like to very carefully put it that way. Self-disclosure. I do not like my food touching on my plate. Okay, gravy should not be on vegetables at all, ever. Okay, if you have Thanksgiving, it should be on those separated plates. It's a difference. Okay, it's not a disability. It's not like I can't ever go to a buffet. Okay, I can make adaptation. Sometimes can allow my food to touch. I'm in a good mood. Okay, so I guess not every issue is a disability. Okay, there are human beings. We have short people and tall people. We have to accommodate for them. That is not a disability. It is just a difference. Okay, so it also helps to kind of think about it that way too. And then there's a whole bunch of some of the lead teacher things about how to change, and we'll get into that with a different. Go back to the painter. So when you are thinking about I'm going faster than the computer lady. That's impressive. Seriously. When you're talking about being that teacher in that Bible time or instructional time, okay, you can look at it from a variety of different ways. How can you, as a teacher, okay, adapt and be flexible? There we go. Okay. So when you are a teacher, these are just some general concepts to think about in your head. Consider using all of the senses. Remember, you have kids who learn through touch, and you have other kids who wouldn't want to touch something with a 10-foot pole. Okay. If you do everything through touch, you're only going to hit half your kids. If you have some kids who learn by moving, and other kids who can't move, you're only going to address half. So if you think about your lesson and say, how am I going to get the movers and shakers to understand that be still and know? Okay. How do we convey that concept? So kind of use your resources, use your Bible, use your other teachers, use us, reach out to this network of people, reach out to me. I don't care. I think my email's in here somewhere on one of these pages. The other thing is visual agendas are amazing. And I do have some ideas. I have a visual support thing that will also be emailed to you. But an agenda just gives a grounding. This is what's going to happen first. This is what's going to happen next. And it doesn't have to be specific. We don't have to go, I'm going to do a worksheet and then we're going to play a game and then it can go Bible time, perhaps, rec, bathroom. Okay. you can kind of put those in, but it gives kids without that memory, that working memory, the ability to have a reference. And it also helps kids who don't read if you have pictures. Okay. And again, I'll get to that in a minute. So repetition over and over and over in a different way. Kind of the way we're doing this. You're gonna hear the same thing, just in a different way. Okay. And get the visual supports. Review your materials. Oftentimes, your curriculum will have an adapted curriculum. So what we did last year for our VBS is we bought one copy of the adapted curriculum, just the leader's guide. And so we felt we didn't have a lot of individuals who needed significantly adapted curriculum. So we didn't have to kind of do a lot of stuff, but it was nice to have information as the director to be able to say to my lead teachers and organizers, think about this type of teaching when you're working with it. Just think about this kind of learning. Think about this kind of individual. Or I found this, as the director, I went through and looked, oh, this is a great idea. This would be perfect for all the kids. And that's kind of the other piece that I want to remember or help us to remember is that just because we do something for somebody with a disability doesn't mean that everybody else can't benefit.
Mhm.
And I kind of use the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act 504 is the accessibility section. And it's the reason we have curb cuts and the reason we have doors that open. All of those things are by law required for people with disabilities. But my 84-year-old mother that walks with a walker is certainly benefits from this.
Hello, hello.
The mother that has a toddler and is pushing a stroller certainly benefits from those curb cuts. The teenager that's riding a skateboard because he wants to look cool benefits from those curb cuts. Okay, so we're just because you're making something doesn't mean it's only for the kid with the disability. And I say kid because we're talking about that's what. And then the most important thing is to change your headspace. Be flexible. Understand, I've got this great lesson. We're gonna do this thing, and you guys.
All right, I can tell it, but I don't understand.
And this has never happened to anybody
Can
here.
you call?
Has it
Can
ever?
you call and
No.
just see what's going on? Can you call the?
Pivot, that's right, just
and
go
find
to the
out what
next.
happens?
I always, whenever I was
Mm.
teaching, I would always plan 7 things, knowing I could only get 3 in. So that when I kind of read the
I'm just
room and
making
was
sure
figuring out what
I've
to
got
do,
my
I was like,
volume up. I don't, you know what I mean?
we're gonna plan B. So as the leader, I'm not gonna say as the.
So hard, okay. So what we need to do is we need to call.
But as the leader, it's your job to be the
And
flexible
that
one.
happens.
We are always encouraging kids to have
Then
flexible thinking,
I
but
won't call the
guess
gum
what?
button. You
That's
just
sort of the leaders.
call like that and then we'll decide. Okay. Yeah.
So these are some of the words that I put up here so that if you are, I'll tell you how I did. If you were doing a Google search for, I need a picture of a Bible, okay? I can use picture, or I can use the word icon, or I can use visual support. Those are ways to look it up, help you. If we can flip to, I'm testing your poor skills here, so
Please.
stop. The visual support document. So, we do have a speech pathologist in the room who probably is familiar with a certain program called Boardmaker. And everybody swears by this Boardmaker.
Okay,
And I'm like, you
then
know
you
what?
need to
I
call
don't want to pay
Talia.
for Boardmaker. I don't want, and
Call
it's a
Talia.
pain in the butt to use Boardmaker.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do my Tracy
Yeah,
Maker.
yeah, you can do.
And this is how
yeah,
Tracy Maker
yeah,
does it.
But call Talia right away. If you don't, if you can do that, then I
Okay,
can call.
sorry,
the
am I in
people.
your way? I can
Okay.
move out of your way.
Okay.
So, Tracy
thank you.
Maker starts with a table in a Google Doc. And I figure out what size I want my picture, my little pieces to be, okay? And I organize it and then I make my grids thicker so that I can cut easily for those of us with little eyesight challenges. And then I go in and I insert a picture from the web. I go and search my picture and I find a picture that kind of represents the most simplistic view of that topic. Okay, I don't even have a lot of stuff, like graphs is not just markers, I get that. But it kind of is an indicator that what might be involved, okay? And so it is considered just a symbol of that topic. Okay, our Bible study time doesn't mean we're only reading from the Bible. You know, at VBS, we've got games and everything to go along with it, but that gives a symbol of what that information might come from, okay? And so then I insert it and I just change the size to make it fit where I want it to fit and print it. You guys can use all these, I believe them not copyrighted. So the worship rally to me is just general chaos. So that was the best I could do. I think I looked up kids in gym or something like that, you know, like it wasn't, I'm not looking up worship rally. So you have to think differently about your words. Child's lunch, or snack. I didn't know what to put for go home. What if some kids are driving in car, some kids are walking, some kids are going to grandma's house, some kids are gonna go to a play date for swim. So I just I looked under icon, house icon. Okay, I didn't want a photo, I didn't want a picture. I just wanted a cartoon. So the other thing I've done is cartoon or drawing. Okay, those are some of the other words that you can insert. Waiting is a really hard concept. I always have a wait. I can insert it anytime I want into a schedule. So you have your visual schedule of what's going to come first and what's second. And then within art, we're going to listen to the directions, do our craft, wait for our friends, line up. Okay, so I tend to put your general schedule this way, and then within it, you can put your put it this way, if needed. You don't have to. It's just if you have a fit. You can do that. Oh, actually, you know what? Can you go to the adult report again?
Send me, this is Dr. Novel. Can you send me?
So this is another topic.
And then I'll call you.
I have another thought.
Yes,
Meet. Some level where they're basically. I mean, when all of that. With their snack with some they, put these.
Right.
Then they have it.
sure. Okay, so what he said,
You need a picture of space.
Alright. thank you.
Um,
So sometimes you're rigid for those at home that might not have heard that. It's those kids that are kind of very rigid. If you show them a picture of a snack that looks like a puzzle cookie, they're going to expect a puzzle cookie. And so you do need to be careful that when you're developing those pictures, that you may want to think about taking a photograph of the space that activity is going to occur in. And that might be easier. It was
You will never know that
until it doesn't work.
So
Yes, when it doesn't work, you go to plan B. But there you go. So this is something off of Johnny and Friends website that I thought was very informative. It was, again, kind of just a summary of how to change up some of your lessons. This is really more for your lead teachers and maybe your missions that does maybe somebody who does a little bit more education based, like rec isn't necessarily as education-based, structure as a missions class. But consider the styles of the students, and that's a whole non-disability, theory of the styles of learning. Some people are
But she
naturalistic, some
did,
people are
she
motor,
did,
some people are
because she didn't
visual,
get me
some
to begin with,
people
and then
are
she
are
put,
auditory.
but then she
So
got me,
use
so she
that
did get me to begin with.
in
She
helping
did-
you design,
She did get me.
the way you
Oh,
teach.
okay.
I thought a lot of these,
Okay,
using
because she did
the
that to begin
action,
with, and then she
you know,
realized what she did. and she
raise your
switched
hand
it.
every time you hear me use the word
Okay,
Bible.
can you just check
They've
and
gotta
see?
be
if
thinking.
anything came in? I
Okay.
just,
Or
okay.
it was kind of embarrassing. I was driving down the road the other day, and the song that we kind of just invented. I was teaching a third and fourth grade class,
That's the one that
and
Jessica
they
Smith is
wanted to memorize the Bible verse, and so we
called.
just
the
kind of invented this chant. And so every time we moved from one location to the other, we were chanting and yelling and screaming as loud as we could, and the kids were excited, and they memorized the Bible verse, and now it's. So there's side effect of diverse teaching. If you're working with a group of individuals that may just need to have the memory aids, but don't need to have pictures,
Okay,
just put the words. It's okay.
yeah, I
just
have her number. I'll call
Bible,
her. If you can just check the
snap,
apps, that's all.
rec.
Okay, thanks. Yeah,
But a visual schedule helps everybody. Okay, so you don't have to get super technical. You don't have to be a whiz at some kind of computer board. You can just write them. That works too. Be careful. Here's my OT. When you're writing them, you are better off typing and printing, because everybody's handwriting looks different and it's sometimes hard to read. Not saying y'all don't know how to write, but Mark, you do need to work on it. Yes. And if you have any kids that use a communication device, being able to ask that somebody front load some of the key vocabulary is useful too. So another theory that you can go with, if you don't like any of the ones that were presented, is well,
Okay.
is universal design for learning. UDL is a
So the I is copy, is that what you're saying?
how is your material presented? Okay, is your material presented verbally? Is it presented pictorially? Is it presented auditorily? Make it universal, use your songs, your chants, your rhymes, those kinds of things to help individuals. Use your pictures. How is that information presented or represented? Then how are we going to allow them to demonstrate what they know? Maybe you have a child who is nonverbal. How are they going to show you that they've memorized the verse? Because they are capable of memorizing a verse. Okay, if we start with the assumption that everybody is capable, then and act from there, we're much better. So maybe they need to have it programmed into a device. They need to pre-program it so that they can say it. Maybe they need to be able to sort some pictures to put it in order. Okay, maybe they need to sign it. Okay, and even if they don't speak sign language, we can make some signs for it. So there's other ways of them being able to demonstrate what they know. Okay? And then how are we gonna allow for differences in engaging in the materials that you're teaching? So maybe you have somebody who is in a wheelchair and they're out at rec. How are we going to adapt so that they can engage in this? Maybe you have somebody who doesn't have vision. How are they going to engage in the craft activity? So when you are designing, so this is a theory that's not a disability theory necessarily, but if you look up Universal Designs for Learning, it's a great comprehensive resource that is boiled down in many different sites, so you don't have to go through the 800 pages of a manual on universal design. You can get kind of synopsized version of it. But if that's the way your brain thinks, use that theory. It doesn't matter. Whether you're going to the Johnny and Friends website or whether you're going to Universal Design or what, use the theory that makes sense in your brain. As a leader, as long as you're asking the question, what do I need to do? Which brings us to the last slide. Any questions? Or comments? Does anybody want to share something? A challenge that they've had or a success? And that includes you guys online too. So we can stop the sharing and go to all of the people at home that we can't see, but. Has anybody had a challenge? Yeah,
We haven't done this. Here for about 4 years, but I think a lot of staff. Sunday school. Things of that
absolutely.
nature. Specifically with our co-op. But I think one thing you struggle with is getting extension volunteers, teachers to understand that some kids learn. That typical kid, and that's a big struggle that have. And what would you suggest are ways that better equip teachers and volunteers to be more flexible and have a better understanding that there are children, classes who might be fidgeting or making noises or those types.
So I had an answer as you were speaking, and then I had a different answer as you ended.
I'll take both.
Okay, and can everybody at home, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear, or do I need to repeat the question?
They should be able to.
Okay. You should be able to hear.
Just-
My,
So
Yeah,
is his
no
eye
thumbs up.
open?
Good.
I mean,
Okay,
it's
thank you.
closed in that picture,
Um,
so that's what I'm asking, is the eye correct?
my first answer would be go to the, all
Okay,
the
so
different ways
it's
people
just
learn.
that when the
Because
picture
that's
is taken,
designed
that
for
it was
everybody.
correct.
And it gets us thinking
Okay.
about,
All right,
oh, there's
I
the
just wanted
kinesthetic
to,
learners.
but so
They
in other
need to
words, he's
move,
not
they're not
squinting
gonna
like that.
understand, or they're not gonna understand as much or be as involved if I stick to strictly auditory. Okay, so that I always go to that one first because it's not. Let's learn about all of us, and you can do it as a training in the adults. Let's all take the little quiz and figure out what kinds of learners we are. And so it's a great way to kind of get everybody on the same page. The answer I came up with second was understanding a little bit about sensory processing. It's a trigger word for a lot of people, but it's basically how is our body taking in information from our environment and using it to organize thoughtful interaction and engagement in our world. And so if I am hard of hearing, I'm going to need more input to come in so that I can process it and understand it and make a response. But if I am somebody who is tactily avoidant, I don't like to be touched, I don't like to touch things, then I need just a little bit of that input in order for me to be able to engage. And so you can kind of look at it from that point of view. Sometimes having an occupational therapist come in and just give a little presentation on sensory processing is a great strategy. For helping leaders understand what that fidgeting actually means. And looking at it that way. The other thing is I always say behavior is not behavior, behavior is communication. So when somebody is doing something, I'm blinking at you. Okay? And I haven't blinked the whole time. Your response is, are you okay? Is there something up? You're not saying, stop blinking. Right? You're not telling me to stop blinking. You're checking in with me to see if there's something wrong. Oh, I'm trying to communicate. There's something in my eye. Okay. So those are some general strategies. I think if you start with how do we all learn and then figure out where people want information. And if you are questioning about where to go get information, I know Johnny and Friends is a great resource. You can go feel free to email me and I'm happy to kind of steer you in a direction of who might know the answer to that, or at least tell you I don't know. So.
I just want to point out that there needs to be some vision casting by the leadership. That we are about to become more intentional about reaching children of all abilities. And what is really needed in your leadership, if you're planning to be part of this with us, and joining God, where he's at work, is flexibility. And what that looks like. I would do some disability awareness exercises. I would have them, experience what it might feel like to feel left out. I would do some things like that to help them to understand how valuable it is to recognize that we can't continue to do things in the same way. We need some variety. We need people who are willing to learn. Where's the teachable part of things? And so sometimes taking me back to the biblical principle of hospitality will help you. Why are we doing this anyway? It isn't about what you're doing, it's why. Why are we doing this? Why does it matter so much that we would be flexible in helping children to be discipled? And grow closer to God. Why? Why does that matter? Well, then we all have to have a way to, to learn that. Be very careful and sensitive about the people you do recruit. Personal ask is the best, most effective method right now. Personal ask, not making a general plea to the church and expecting warm bodies to show up. That's not how it works. And so having people that we know would be sensitive to seeing and hearing needs, being flexible about how maybe having helpers in your rooms with the leaders to help those that may have a harder time, flexibility. But tell them. We don't have those kinds of environments by just watching it happen. We have to help people understand what it is that we believe is what God wants us to do, and then here's how we're going to implement it. We're going to learn as we go because we're going to experiment. That's called experimentation. We're not making change. We're experimenting. We're going to try this and see how it doesn't work well. We'll look back up and try it. But really, it's a lot about interview. It's a lot about getting to know your leaders and recognizing their gifts and talents and helping them to understand God might asking them to go to it. And being teachable and all that. That's sort of part of the ministry person. So I just want to add that to the conversation. You were asking, how do we make that happen? And pray. Obviously. Because God will give me with the attitude and the desire to reach more people. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who've gone to teach, my experience with other people there, they're very much interested, they feel very strongly about information. And sometimes getting the information becomes more important than what we really do, which is creating a form of connection to the bottom. got to understand what your motive is as a. My motive is to make this a warm, welcoming place for kids welcome learn. Not this piece of the curriculum, this piece of the curriculum, or this piece.
Well, yes, they offering the banquet,
Right.
not forcing them to eat.
There you go. Wow. Yeah, I gotta write that down here.
Hey, it's because we work as a team.
But, and really that, the flexibility is the heart of it. You have to ask the teachers when they're including different schools. So my papa. To move on. Move these, you heard about it, he created these beautiful lessons, they fail first 10 minutes. Then move on to the next one, move on to the next one, but as long as they're hard at, because I welcome them to include all these UCC. So it's kind of shifting your goal, in
I would be also
Yes.
intentional about preparing your leaders. Because one of the biggest reasons that I hear from churches that they don't have volunteers, people are afraid. They don't even know what they're afraid of. They just don't know how to talk to people. So if we're willing to help them, listen, we don't have to be an expert in disabilities. But we do need to learn how to come alongside a child that you may be matched with. And we can help you with that. If you're doing disability awareness, it's part of the leader training, not just, a volunteer training. You're more likely to have that new buy-in, that everybody understands, they're serious, we're going to do this. So, I don't know if that's
We have
helpful.
another-
Fear, it's usually one thing that you're seeing when you're seeing people that are in their place. They'll just not know, and then like, but they don't know if you know a serious thing, anything, so just that.
Guess what? We all don't know what we don't know.
and kind of. I don't know if we should say difference, but the concept that church is church and rules school. And right now, I'm not trying to be school, right? And so when you think it's school, you think, ooh, there are all these experts that help the kids that have learning differences and all that. But listen, you don't have to be that expert in church center. Just have to, and you would keep offering about that, you know, the love of Christ, really, however you know how to.
And introduce that philosophy, that whole idea of, the culture. And welcoming to the end. And that be part of how you need to promote your own school group. This is a group that intentionally wanting to include all abilities. And that way it was private, leaders, volunteers, and babies. These here too. Sometimes they're more resistant. And only some volunteers. And especially if they feel procedures change and. It's a variety of people that do that.
All right, we had somebody else.
Well, I was thinking how. Unfortunately, so we are. Kids that work. They're from themselves, like you said, so important. And I just want to say that I learned so much reading from volunteer that I visited them. And we saw everybody doing skits. Dr. Maya, sorry, no, some kids. And I will tell you, the kids were so excited that they were. Putting this on that I can came back here and I'm like, what? Like just to involve with the situation on myself. All of a sudden, get excited about learning. And there are the kids that are just pressed up and don't want to say anything. Those kids that it's all. Well, you're all, you're. But including them in a way that they're comfortable with too.
Right, so you're making adaptations for the kinesthetic learners, whether they've got a disability or not.
Right.
You're making adaptations for your verbal and your visual learners.
And I also am a music person, so I'm a very good.
Okay, so I am not a music person. Nobody ever wants to hear me sing.
It's not, it's a joyful noise regardless of the.
Yeah, not the twins.
Kind of said but not said out loud, is that you do need to incorporate an intake process somebody that some question about child abilities. Yeah. So if you don't have that in a summer program, a vacation Bible school program, you need to think about using an intake, but adding questions to it. Will help you identify the specific accommodations and supports that are needed. And then getting somebody involved for the classroom full day can help be helpful. And the third is having an area that's sensory specific where kids can, you know, have another spot and be regular, you know, have a quieter spot. Can be in your classrooms, can be, or it can be in with the kit kind of thing, that in the street, you provide a box for every programming area that has fidgets and different things in it. Or it can be a tent. Sometime with that,
Refrigerator boxes are great. Dishwasher boxes.
some of those things, I know there are some churches who don't use intake, they don't care. I
So,
don't understand.
Just real quick before the end, I know that for our church, we have a couple of leading questions that if are triggered a yes, then we have somebody reach out to have some more conversation. Okay, so because you don't necessarily need to go to ask 400 questions about how they ambulate and how they, you know, so does your child receive special education services at school? Is a great leading question that if that is checked yes, then we're gonna have somebody have a longer conversation. What are some of the other questions that people might use? That if you guys have an intake process, what are some of the other questions that you guys ask or lead people to engage in that longer conversation? Okay. Okay.
Well, there's a sample intake, there's sample intake some of those in that website. We will go compare that, we have a test, maybe we'll go look there.
But even we-
ask questions about food, like allergies, you know, anything about the
Oh.
that we can put to them.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any sensory sensitivities or challenges that we need to be aware of? And that can be, if somebody is astute and is a parent of a kid with autism, they're gonna go down the whole path of, you know, vestibular proprioceptive. And if you're not, you might have, yeah, they wear glasses. Do you know what I mean? So your conversation can be really long or short, but that's it, yeah. And again, you don't have to have a lot of questions, but are there any allergies or foods that we need to be aware of?
That's in general, those, well, maybe personality, outgoing, guy, types of, any kind of list, so that you know when that kid is not interacting, that's the key way on, or you know, we need to encourage somebody, or those kind of there.
And we do understand that Vacation Bible School often has kids who come in that day and register. Guess what? I brought my 3 friends, you know, and they're gonna register today, so you don't have advance notice, okay? Be flexible. In your thinking, okay, we're doing the best we can. You know,
And in that case, parents just drop and go, or do you have them stay and?
well, they have to fill out the intake because we have to have contact information, we have to have allergy information. And so you can include that kind of question. We may not have time for the follow-up conversation that first day. But the person doing the intake at that registration table is gonna flag it and hand it to your disability coordinator person. Who's gonna, hey, can you take a look at Johnny in 2nd grade, just to make sure the teacher's okay?
And I think if you're the person sitting at the registration table, best question. We wanna make sure you're blah, blah, son, daughter, has the best time they can to. We can move.
Yep.
That kind of questions.
Yeah.
And that at least starts up.
Don't be surprised if some parents don't
Yes. And disclosure is a choice.
Yeah.
Disclosure is a choice. Okay?
Yes.
When I was touring with like churches with my son-in-law, with autism. We came, you just showed up on Sunday, there was no advance notice for anybody, but I made sure as his parent to let them know certain. things That I feel would impact class, impact everything. But one other thing that I looked for in a church I visited was, do they allow me as the parent to stay with him for the first 1 or 2 classes? And in the case of Speakle, I was here for a few months, accompanying him in the classroom until they learned that. Because like I said, you might tell someone who's running the Sunday school, like, he has sensory issues, they might not necessarily know what that means until they experience it. So one of my things was, would the church allow me to accompany him Sunday school?
And we had actually, my church had a very similar situation. We had a young mother to come in with a young girl who is nonverbal, is autistic. And she's 4, so she would qualify for a preschool program. And so mom wanted to know, I took her back and showed her. And she asked if the behavior therapist could be with her on some to get her going. And our response was absolutely, but you need to go through our check process.
Yeah.
So because we have a policy that anybody who's behind that gate has been checked by our church. And so, yes, so that is absolutely, and here's a way that some churches need to kind of, manage that. So, yes. If we're here to, but again, I'm here to support you to get into the word and you fill your cup up. And how are you going to do that? Well, for you, it means I need to rest and know that he's okay before I can fill up.
Yeah.
For some parents, it's like, I need to get away and be, and whatever as long as you're safe, I need to fill up before I can deal with my kid. And again, there's not a one size fits all, yeah, you're right. Good point. Sensitive time for me.
Anybody got any other questions?
Does anybody from home have question or comment? And I don't mean necessarily have to be in your home, but if it's not, yes.
Rest of the rules. Yeah.
Right back to you.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. And with that, we're going to close out the Zoom portion of our meeting and just encourage you to follow up with Johnny and friends, with me, if there are any questions. We'd love to hear from you, and more churches are invited. You're always invited to a network meeting. But thank you, Tracy, for bringing your expertise today. And we really appreciate that. And I hope that they're practical things. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great Saturday.
Bye.